reflection and meditation. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting, and I hope that this will be a fruitful meeting as we've always had in the past 1.5 meetings where I've been the chair. Welcome to all committee members and to any members of the public. I will now ask the committee members to introduce themselves, please.
Afternoon, Deirdre Bartman.
Good afternoon, Chair, Premier, all members. Wendy Kaiser-Philander.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, Premier and members. Cameron Dugmore.
Member Daniel Plato.
Good afternoon, my apologies. Dan Plato, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other members, if I'm not mistaken. Welcome to all the officials, and a special welcome to the Premier. Welcome to you, sir. It's our first meeting together in this standing committee, and I hope it's going to be many more to come. All right, just a couple of house rules. Remember, all members are to be muted at the beginning of this meeting, and members who will flag points of order in the chat function of MS Teams. All video and audio must be switched off to improve the quality of the connection. If an official is speaking, you may put on your mic and video, and all other participants must please switch off their mics and videos once they're finished speaking. Without further ado, I'd like to give over to the Department of the Premier for the annual performance plan and the status on the performance to date.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think I will kick off. I know that I've just had a message from the Director General who said he is struggling to join. So I'm not sure if he's got on yet or not. I'm just checking to see. I can't see him on as yet. Perhaps just part of introduction, I just want to double check. I think I've got Alma Geldenhuys, Andre Jumat. Who else can I see from the see the DG is on. Hilton Orange, Hildegard Fast, Louise Esterhuis and Lucas Buter. I think I've got everybody on from the department. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and of course a briefing on our annual performance plan and the status of that plan to date. So thank you very much for the invitation, and we are happy to give you that update. And I think with that, I'm going to just hand over to the DG. I'm not sure if DG is going to do it or hand over to someone else, but I'll hand over to the Director General from there. Thank you, Chair.
Premier, thank you very much. Chair, can I jump in? Good afternoon, Chair. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir.
Wonderful. Chair, from our side, thank you very much. I want to confirm that I had a discussion with the Chair, our member Fry, earlier today. We've got a comprehensive presentation that we've prepared. I mean, Andre will lead on it, but I will ask my CFO, Driekus Basson, who actually prepared all the documentation, to lead us through the entire presentation, and then we will be open to take some questions. So, Chair, you will note in our presentation, it's quite comprehensive. I mean, we're not going to take a long time because, I mean, we've got no issues with Q1. I mean, we've got full achievement in terms of all our indicators. The first part of the presentation will just give you an oversight of how we've gone about putting our APP together for this year, because obviously we're 6 months down the line already. It shows clear alignment between the APP and the strategic objectives of government. So you will see it actually also per program. And then we'll also give you a line of sight of where we're sitting with regards to our expenditure budget. But up to the end of June, we've got no major issue. Chair, as I indicated to you early on, I've got an urgent engagement with Transnet Ports Authority. I mean, I'm trying to sort out some of the issues relating, to the port. But Andre, who's also in this meeting, will stand in for me. But Driekus is quite familiar with everything in the stuff. So you will make the presentation, then Andre will lead. And then when I'm done with the meeting, if the meeting is still on, I will definitely join. I've also informed the Premier of it. So Chair, if you okay with that arrangement, can I hand straight over to Driekus, who will then take you through the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. The Transnet Port Authority, and especially the Port of Cape Town, is very close to my heart. So please go sort them out, please.
Yeah.
Mr. Basson, Driekus, you may go ahead, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Just on I was asked to provide feedback on the annual performance plan and the quarterly performance for the current year. So we've gone back a little bit in terms of just what is included in the APP, and then we look at the quarterly performance and a little bit at the financial information as well. We've included one slide on that. So trying to see why. It's firstly, we'll deal with the APP for this current year. Members are aware of the provincial strategic priorities as distilled from the provincial strategic plan, so-called recovery plan that we've started with. Key there is jobs, well-being and safety as our 3 provincial priorities at the apex. Then VIP 5 included in our APP is the VIP 5 strategy. And that's basically to deliver on the strategic areas. It covers innovation, culture, governance, and risks associated. There are 6 areas, as you'll note there. It's about citizen-centric culture, innovation for impact, integrated service delivery, governance transformation, talent and staff development, and transversal foresight. We'll talk a bit more about those. Just to note that the Western Cape Government Way supports all of this, which is the new way of work, which seeks to enable Western Cape Government to deliver on these priority areas. The impact statement for us is then the government services are delivered to the people of the Western Cape in an accessible, innovative, and citizen-centric way. So it's all about the citizen and how they experience us as government. For some other reason, I'm not there. We move on. The strategic role of .P in this context, we have basically 3 roles. It's a guiding role, an enabling role, and a directing role within the Western Cape Government. And we've just explained there what that is all about. Those are areas, for instance, we guide on learning, innovation, culture change, collaboration, adaptation. In terms of our enabling role, we enable departments to deliver, and that includes the governance area. The key impact of governance must be service delivery for maximum impact. And then the directing role is where we drive implementation, monitoring, and review from a strategic level within the departments, also making sure there's accountability through our leadership structures. At the base there, we've just indicated the strategic role of .P is central to enable and strengthen a capable and responsive Western Cape Government for the enablement of improved service delivery and improved experience and impact of the citizen. Our vision, mission, and impact as tabled in our APP is about the vision as tabled was enable a safe Western Cape where everyone prospers. Subsequently, we are saying we're looking at creating a government that the citizen trusts. Mission is to enable and lead a capable Western Cape government by institutionalizing a culture of innovation and collaboration for improved service delivery. And the impact that we'd like to have is to have an enabled Western Cape government that delivers services that are accessible, of quality, and people-centric. And it's ultimately about improving the socioeconomic outcomes for our people in the Western Cape. This is, Chair and members, what we call a horrendogram. It's basically just a tabulation or a picture of the strategic landscape. Essentially, it's about, if one looked at the outputs within the programs, you'll actually see the light gray has got the program 1 and it says equals 3, and sometimes it's program 2, 4. Basically saying how many of our targets, if you had to lay it out, actually contributes firstly to our departmental strategic outcomes, which are those dark pink or mauve colored areas. And how does all of this contribute to the recovery plan? So it's just the, as they call it, the touch points, if one had to put it out in a picture. It's quite, I think Almo can always add to this subsequently if members want to understand a little bit more about this, but it's really about the linkages from what we have in our APP to our strategic landscape. Then on the departmental strategic outcomes, I've just looked at the per program tabulation. Firstly, under program 1, executive governance and integration, we have 2 strategic outcomes: enable citizen-centric culture and improve quality, efficiency, and effectiveness of departmental performance. You will see the first bullet is repeated in all the programs because we also have a frontline service delivery visits campaign that we're running on a quarterly basis. Each program visits a site where the discussions are then held with the communities, those who make use of our service, and we look at improvement reports subsequently to make sure we get a better experience at those facilities. Under program 2, the remaining strategic outcomes is improved evidence-based policy planning and implementation, and then also coupled to that, increased use of quality data and evidence for better decision making. Under program 3, people management, we have, as I mentioned, enable citizen-centric culture. And then we're looking at improved people management maturity, and then also enabled and competent employees, which hangs within the talent VIP 5 strand, as I mentioned earlier. Just on the next one, that is program 4, Center for E-Innovation, the outcomes there, about digitally empowered citizens, employees, and then also about the optimization and integration of citizen-centric services, and the connected government and sound ICT governance is where our broadband program is also located, and Wi-Fi. Program 5, corporate assurance. There's all about transforming governance away from just tick boxing to governance, in fact, for service delivery. It must result in improved service delivery, otherwise it is not efficient. And then there's also the improved perception of trust in the Western Cape government to deliver on promises, and that is enabled through strategic communication. And then also we'd like to improve awareness of the Western Cape government brand purpose, also internally to facilitate internal culture change. And lastly, program 6, legal services. It's about enabling legally sound decision-making by the Western Cape government in the attainment of priorities and delivery of services. Then the performance context, basically looking back a little bit to 21-22, was about pushing forward from the devastation wrought by COVID-19, but also about creating hope, sorry about that, for the recovery and renewal that followed. The recovery plan was developed prioritizing job safety and well-being, and the levers being innovation, culture, and governance as its strategic foundation. We provided through our program 2 policy strategy and data support with the development thereof and the ongoing implementation of the recovery plan. We as .P support innovation, culture, and governance through work conducted under the new way of work strategic umbrella. And here we're looking at frameworks aimed at creating conducive organizational culture that puts citizens first in everything we do. Also about fostering, nurturing ongoing innovation in the Western Cape government. So there are quite a number of things happening in those spaces. Then if we go to the next slide, still under the performance context, digital and data transformation also underpins the recovery plan. And these are supported in programs 2 and 4 as the main drivers in those areas. More emphasis was placed on continuous and more regular monitoring and reporting of our reported performance. We've looked at some criteria in that regard when it comes to performance monitoring. As far as the APP and the tracking of performance goes, we have developed an electronic system, the APP indicator monitoring system, which enabled us to do monthly tracking in addition to quarterly, and to report to the executive on departmental, financial, and non-financial performance. So in terms of our performance as a department in 2019-20, we were at 88% of our targets achieved in that year. 2020-21, it was 100%. Last year, we achieved 98%. And I'll go to the quarterly performance next. So in terms of our, just these other two slides is more specific to what has happened under those broad strands. If you look at your citizen centricity, innovation for impact, and integrated service delivery, that's more an update of what we are busy with. You'll note, for instance, in the first block, PTM as the provincial leadership has been put on a development journey. We've had a values-based leadership development program that has commenced. We've already piloted. There's a culture journey launch that we had at the CTICC on the 23rd of May. We've just followed it up. And this is where senior management service staff gets to deal with some of these notions around culture and values and just managing for improved delivery by having a proper value system. The culture boot camp, there was a Nyanga visit by a multidisciplinary team in August 2022. And then a culture and innovation room was established just to have culture conversations. Because in the end, there's no point in having employees that are disengaged. It's all about engaging them and say, how is it that we need to behave around here if we want to achieve all these goals that we have set for ourselves? The innovation for impact, there's an innovation network that we've launched. We have strengthened our relationship with the CPSI, the Center for Public Sector Innovation. There's existing innovations are being mapped across the Western Cape government. The PTI, we are reconfiguring as we wish for an innovation hub to be established there. Apart from the fact that we'd like to modernize the training center. And then the PDIA, problem-driven iterative adaptation approach, we are operating in terms of that, and we've improved the areas in which we're looking for solutions to 6. It used to be 3. One of the new areas added was procurement, and there's extensive work. In fact, I'm on that team, so we're looking at the causes and then trying to find innovative solutions to take us forward. Then on integrated service delivery, there's also some work happening with districts and municipality. And we have a program called the CCE, the Community Capacity Enhancement Program, where we are taking a number of officials and other stakeholders through that program at Cromaria on a weekly basis. And just under governance transformation, municipal data governance framework was completed. There was awareness created in all municipalities around the prevention of and response to cyber attacks. Combined assurance, we are continuing to institutionalize that. The focus will be on internal control units this year. And we have already looked at responsibilities that must be conducted by those units. And our partner Treasury with our unit here is developing a combined assurance framework for municipalities as well. Under talent and staff development, I've already spoken to the work at our Provincial Training Institute. Along with that, we also have a skills audit that we've done, piloted with .P SMS members. And then the last one, I think, is around institutional refresh. Premier made the announcement in SOPA, and we have then formed new departments of infrastructure and of mobility. Infrastructure being an amalgamation of public works, roads, and human settlements, while mobility will take care of the transport function. We are working towards next year, April, for that to be implemented. And to note that draft macro organizational design has already been accepted in principle for both of those departments. Just financial performance expenditure as at 31 July, I've chosen, Chair, to add a month just to make it a bit more fresh. Essentially, we spent 33.89%. That is basically on target with where we need to be at that time of a financial year. You'll see most programs are on target. Program 2 is lower at 21%. Most of the expenditure historically and planning-wise happens in the last and the third and the fourth quarter. So that percentage is in line with the past trends. People management spend is fine. Center for Innovation is slightly elevated, but it's only because of the timing of a large expenditure in their space. The licenses for Microsoft is normally paid in May or June, and hence we do anticipate a higher spending rate normally by this time. Corporate assurance is a large expenditure item that they're dealing with CETA with around their teammate software. That once that comes through, it will add to the spend. Legal services are on target. Compensation of employees reasonably on target. We don't have any risks there as far as we can see. Goods and services was the license impact. Transfers and subsidies is simply the timing of the payment to our partner for the Cape Access Center program. Most of that is prioritized in the first few months of the year. Capital assets you'll find is low at 8.74%, but that is our partner CETA having had some problems in delivering for us, but we are ironing that out, Chair, and there is movement, so we do anticipate that spending to improve. The performance summary, overall, we've achieved 100% of our quarterly targets for the first quarter. We had 50 indicators or targets, and we've achieved all 50 across all programs. It is a result of our in-quarter, month-to-month tracking, where we make sure that where there are challenges, we address that timeously, so that we are able to achieve. No risks highlighted during the quarter. And we've just looked at the AG's criteria of sufficiency, reliability, and relevance, and all of those we could comply with. The indicator performance then, that's just a breakdown for programs. In program 1, there were 3 targets. Program 2, 7, 9 in 3, 15 in program 4, 14 in program 5, and 2 in legal services. And all of those were achieved, so there's no exceptions at this point. Chair, that's from the formal presentation from my side. If there's any detail required, I do have my APP here, so I can always just reflect should there be questions. And Andreas here as well, and Almo to assist. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Bassan. Before we open for questions, members, would the Premier like to round off the presentation by any chance?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. As you can see, I've managed to get out of my car. I'm back in my office. But thank you very much, and thank you to Drickus for the presentation. I think that's great. We're just open for questions.
Thank you. Members, are there any members who would like to pose any questions to the presentation? Member Bartman?
Thank you so much, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I wanted to find out, given that the National Treasury is obviously currently reviewing how public procurement is happening in our country, whether we as the Western Cape, and particularly perhaps the Department of Premier, is perhaps looking at how can we incorporate sustainability and innovation within the public procurement process. Because often within the national framework, what we see is that the same people benefit over and over again, and large companies benefit the most. And sometimes it doesn't trickle down to the smaller suppliers, or we aren't able to, for example, build the innovative hospitals in COVID period without those type of regulations. So how are we able to then bring those type of sustainability and innovation criteria into it, so that we don't need to be concerned with once a disaster comes, so that we are able to be innovative and to be sustainable? Thanks.
Mr. Bassan, would you like to answer that, or would pose my questions as well, and then you answer them.
I think, Chair, you can add the other questions.
Okay, there's no other indications that there will be questions here. So I will ask my 2 questions. Excuse me. Thank you for the presentation. It's just a pity that it was given to us so late last night, but that's no problem. We can always sort that out another time, because we are under we are all operating in different circumstances at the present. But anyway, I just want to focus on program 3, people management. And while I accept the fact that this is a high level presentation and we've gone through everything, I'd like to know when you say on your slide 8, where it says it enables citizen-centric culture amongst our people. I get that, and I take that point, but my question would be, would we rather not want to have a people-centered centric culture inculcated in our organization? And how would that trickle down to stuff like program support, organizational development, people training and empowerment, and people management practices? Because I subscribe to the saying from Richard Branson when someone asked him, what happens if we don't train? What happens if we train people and they leave? And his answer was, what happens if we don't train people and they stay? So I would like to know a bit more about how we are inculcating a culture of people-centered or our internal citizen, as I would call. And then I would like to touch on the point of cyber attacks. I would just like some more detail as to how we in fact are mitigating the risk of cyber attacks, because we're seeing more often than not that cyber attacks are becoming the norm in any organization, be it a public organization or a private organization. So I'd like to know that. Thank you very much, Member Dugmore.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Just a few questions in regard to the targets for this quarter of the annual performance plan in regard to rolling out additional Wi-Fi hotspots. What was the target, and how many were actually installed? And then secondly, in this quarter, what was the amount of money spent on consultants? And then thirdly, if we could also have a breakdown of what was spent on legal services. I think for the resolution at the end, we would also like a briefing, a breakdown of that, and also a list of the advocates actually briefed. And then if the Premier's office could also indicate their target for achieving employment equity in this department, which has severely regressed and is not representative of the people of the Western Cape, could indicate what are the progress and plans to ensure a representative and capable department. And then there's also reference in the presentation that was made to jobs. What was the target for jobs for the year, and how many jobs were created in the province for this particular period of the annual performance plan? Thank you.
Thank you, Member Dugmore. Mr. Masan, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chair. I will answer as much as I can, and then my team members and even Premier might want to step in on some of the other questions. So firstly, Member Bartman asked about the need for sustainability and innovation criteria to be added to the current policy development process of National Treasury, as they are reviewing the public procurement. That question largely would be on our treasury partners, but I'm aware that in terms of the draft public procurement legislation, some of our treasury officials were quite instrumental in writing those. But I think beyond just the need to legislate for sustainability and innovation, the PDIA process, which I'm also part of, is seeking to do exactly that. And that is within the current legal parameters. There is still space for innovation in procurement and for sustainable practices. It's just that we haven't practiced them. So we are unearthing those, and we will be also, as part of our stakeholder engagement, National Treasury is one of the key stakeholders that we are now seeking to engage on the number of areas. So that's in response to that question. Just on the chairperson, your question on citizen-centric people, the entire leadership of our people management branch went to Hoek for a strategic session. And what they came back with was exactly what you were talking about. And that is that you have to, if you want to improve conditions for the citizen, you have to improve conditions for the employee first. And so there's a whole range of implementation actions which they propose through that strategy which they are drafting to get to a state where our people that work for us are in a good enough or satisfactory state to deliver for citizen centricity. So that's definitely in that process. Just on cyber attacks, how we mitigate those, Chair. Last year we had one big attack that we managed successfully to mitigate. Given that and other risks in the area and just the regularity with which they were trying to pierce the cyberspace on our side, we successfully motivated for funding to Treasury in the last MTech round. We were allocated some amounts, a budget for cyber security. How we have chosen to spend that is with, for instance, in our space to assist us, there's not one supplier, there's actually two suppliers, one on governance and one on the technical side to assist us with tools. So we've purchased much more tools that we now have is more sophisticated, because you are dealing with sophisticated people on the other side of the attacks. And then also just in terms of the Microsoft software licenses, within that license, there's also various cyber security tools that we have purchased in addition to just the normal software, just to make sure that the posture is proper. Then on the question by Member Dagmo about the public Wi-Fi rollout, our target was 1,300 sites. We've overachieved there with 1,341 sites that we have installed by the end of the quarter. Chair, the questions about spending on consultants, spending on legal services, breakdown, list of advocates briefed, and I think also on the EE stats and so on, that I suspect the committee might want to, if at all possible, put that in writing to us so that we can do the necessary data mining and get the proper information. I don't have that with me right now, Chair. Maybe Andre and Premier might want to talk. There's still an issue on jobs as well. Thanks.
Chairperson.
I assume that the list of consultants should be included in the annual report, if I'm not too mistaken. But I'll ask the officials just to clarify that. But Mr. Jumat, would you like to say something like that?
With your permission, sir, and if the Premier will allow me just to go ahead, I'm sure he would want to respond to a number of these. Yes, Chairperson, the question was specifically that Member Dagmo had asked, was related to our Q1 utilization of advocates and the briefs and so on. as well as the breakdown on legal services spend, as well as our EE targets for the quarter, which, and as you will know, we have annual EE targets as well. We have an EE plan for it, and all departments are expected to have that. And so with your permission, I beg the indulgence of Member Dagmo as yourself and the committee for us to do that data mining, and then if necessary, well, and then certainly provide a written response to provide all of the detail. Chairperson, if again, with your permission, if I may just augment on some of the issues that Driekus had responded to. Just to go back to the first question that Member Bartman, and I agree completely with Driekus's response to Member Bartman. But just in addition, when we talk about the new way of work, it essentially also is about learning the lessons through the pandemic and our response to the pandemic, and having to work in different ways. Now, the province, and not only the department, learned to be extremely innovative, and some of our innovations that are now well known and well documented, and I mean, probably the highest profile is the build of the Hospital of Hope. And through that, we have, through very innovative ways, through collaboration, through partnerships, been able to procure and build without any adverse audit findings as a result of those processes. Those are the new ways of working that we are hoping to, and we are continuing to institutionalize as best we can through what we call the New Way of Work program. Also, just to, I think, just to apologize to the chairperson for the late submission, and I think we take note that we would then in future have to improve on the timing of our submission, Chair. On the matter of people-centeredness and our citizen-centric culture, I think in our presentation, we've already given a sense of a very number of many programs already underway. And each of the programs, including program 3, which is the branch people management, have a compulsory indicator, which asks of each of the senior managers in each of the branches to do at least one site visit to begin to experience citizen engagement and the extent to which our frontline service delivery sites are engaging with citizens. And each of the programs have in this year, which was, it's a new indicator, have already conducted as per that indicator, but not only because it's an APP indicator, because we understand that that is at the heart of our culture journey going forward. So all SMS members, or most of our SMS members, have already been to a service delivery site, and it's not only about engaging with employees, but also trying to engage with the citizens who receive our services at those sites. But that is just an example of what is currently underway to introduce and entrench citizen centricity amongst our staff. That's one example of the very many. I think I may just mention that what we're already also doing is having an additional induction program where all new appointees, and we started this in this financial year, are invited to a half-day session with the Premier and the DG and our organizational behavior team, and which takes them through our culture journey about our values and our brand, which essentially underpins our culture journey. So there's already a lot happening in the department, but also in the province. So just to augment that, thanks, Chairperson.
And as I've indicated to the Premier previously, I'd like to be part of that induction process because I'm also new. So I'd love to see the introduction of the culture.
Sorry, Chair, sorry, couldn't hear the response there.
Sorry? Oh, okay. Mr. Premier, sir.
I just wanted to double check if anybody else wanted to come in, Lucas Buter or any of the other team. I mean, we have said that we will get the data for you on each of those questions, being, you know, the E targets, the legal services, the spend on consultants. But I just want to double check that if there's anybody else. I think I saw, did I see Dr. Fast's hand? and then I'll come in at the end.
Yes, there was a question that being asked around the number of jobs that have been created, and I just want to say that it really depends on if you're doing quarter by quarter or year over year. So to be very specific, the number of people employed in Q2 of 2021, in other words, by the end of June last year, was 2.256 million, and by Q2 June this year was 2.344 million, which comes to 87,000 more jobs created than last year exactly at this time. So it's exactly from June last year to June this year. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Forst. Chair, before I come in, I see Honourable Dugmore's hands up again. So maybe he wants to come in first, and then I'll come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. No, thanks for those responses and the commitment to provide the information. Just in regard to the jobs, thanks also for that answer. I appreciate the fact that those were the number of jobs created, but I'm actually asking what was the target that was actually set, if there was a target set, and then maybe that could also be for further writing down. I'm not sure whether Ms. Fast could provide, in which sectors of the economy those particular jobs were created. And then there's, unless I missed it, I didn't receive an answer to the issue of employment equity in this department. Thanks.
Thank you, yeah.
Chair, you're very, very faint.
Okay, so is this better?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Chair, so I'll just come in there. I mean, we've said that we will give that detail on each of those things. When it comes to jobs target, I mean, obviously that's not this department. And as we are busy with the recovery, we didn't set targets for each of those sectors, so to speak, as the honourable member spoke. And so we're busy with a new policy, and we'll have a look and see whether it is growth for jobs and what those targets will be. But I mean, as I said in the House yesterday, I've just come from the Lekgotla, and I can even provide some of the national documents that probably from there that looked at some of the sector jobs targets. Some of them really did concern me. I mean, I saw on furniture, and as a sector, we spent 1.24 billion, and we created 130 jobs in South Africa. So that was really concerning on kind of that sector approach. But and I think the total spend 70 billion. And of course, that involves automotive, etc. But many of those sectors are not really relevant for this province. But in our space, there won't be a jobs target written in our recovery. It will be in economic development. But we can also, I mean, I'm not sure if this committee would want us to get that detail from them. Then if I can just add, I think Drickus has added on PDRA. So we've got National Treasury busy doing the review on procurement. It is a big issue in South Africa, but we are doing that same or a similar process through PDRA, which it's going to be interesting to see what that brings out in the process, and hopefully we do find some interesting opportunities in how we can, within the current framework, find easier, better ways, because I think we've heard it for many years that procurement is a big issue, whether it be for smaller companies getting opportunities, as the member said, or the same companies getting it over and over again and no other companies getting a look in. There are various issues. And then, of course, even just the costing. I mean, people raise it often that the kind of money you spend on a product is just crazy within this current process. And how do we fix that? How do we enable that to be cost-effective, quality products that is still delivering what the procurement policies and processes are looking to achieve? And then the last part that I'll come back on is also just to say a few more words on the culture journey. So it's something that we haven't been on that long as a government. And I'm very happy to say that we're now entering our government into a competition. It's the competition of best company to work for in the world.
And no, as far as I can find, I haven't found another government that's ever entered into this competition. And it is about, citizen, our own people, and focus on our own people. But of course, the culture journey is about how we, as the sort of corporate citizen, and how we work within our framework, embedding our values, the culture journey, so that at the end of the day, it's about our values, how we work, and the effect that it has on the citizen. And part of that culture journey, we actually had a session today, and it was just under 300 of our senior managers were in the session this morning. So it is about, getting our team on board as the 87,000 people who work for this government. But if we get it right and we get the values embedded in what we do, what will happen is that our customers, being our citizens, would end up getting a much better service from a government who cares, a government who lives their values, who's innovative, who's responsive, etc. And so it is a journey, and it is both internal to affect external. I want to say that we are not shy to say that at the center is the citizen, and we're also not shy to say that in actual fact what we want to become is absolutely citizen obsessed. But the chair is correct. You can only do that if your team itself is building a team that works together, that lives your values. And we're also not just doing it on our own. We're doing it with some other corporate citizens in the region. So we've already had a meeting with our bankers, being Nedbank, and gone through their culture journey. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago with Provincial Beverages, gone through their culture journey. Very interesting, because they've won that award many times, or come in the top 10 many times. So it's really good to see what our competitors would be like. And they too, it was interesting when we got there, they too had a culture room. They did similar things to what we've been putting in place. And as the chair said, he would also like to join one of our welcome sessions, coffee with the DG and the Premier, for all new employees. And we'll definitely send that invite so that you can come along and see what happens when our team engages with new employees of the month. Chair, thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Arnold. Doug, was that a legacy hand? Doug, sorry.
Chair?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm sure you'll make a ruling as to, whether the questions have been answered or not. I mean, I don't think I need to ask the question for a third time. If there's not an answer, then, if there's not an interest or recognition that employment equity is a problem in this department, then maybe someone can just say that. But I haven't heard any plans, any acknowledgement or anything.
Chair, Andre Dumont did say that he will mine the data on the question on consultants, the question on legal services, and the question on employment equity, and we will supply that.
Thank you. I agree.
Okay, I didn't hear that included equity. But yeah, Chair, I just want to record my concern that the #1 citizen of this province, doesn't have anything to say about the lack of equity in his own department. I want to record that.
Yours is noted, sir. However, you will get an answer from the department. Thank you very much for the presentation. The team is free to leave if you so wish, but you're welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting. Thank you. Our next item on our agenda is. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the consideration and adoption of the draft committee meeting minutes of the 24th of August, 2022. Can we flight that, please, Ms. Kamish Ahmed? Thank you very much. Right. I assume everybody has gone through the minutes as it was circulated in the calendar entry. We have we have points 1 through 6. And the meeting was adjourned at 13:58. Are there any, firstly, can we have a proposer for the minutes, a mover for the minutes, please?
I so move, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Plato.
Chair, my hand is up. I second.
Sorry, I couldn't see that, my bad. Sorry, Honourable Bartman, Honourable Bartman, second. Thank you very much. Let's move on to our next item on our agenda, which would be sorry.
The quarterly.
Sorry, the next item would be the consideration adoption of the draft committee quarterly report for April to June 2022. So that the draft committee report is hereby tabled, and it includes the committee budget and tracking document below. Are there any comments on the report? I don't see any comments on the report. So shall we adopt the report? Member Bartman?
Chair, I move that we adopt.
Thank you very much. So adopted. Thank you very much, Ms. Kamish Ahmad. The last one for now is the consideration and adoption of the draft committee oversight report of 27 July 2022. This report was distributed to members on the 29th of August. Member Botha was the chair of that report at the time. However, the powers to consider and adopt the report remains in the chair. So if anybody has any questions to that report. No? Okay, Ms. Kamish Ahmad, are we able to adopt this report for now?
Chairperson, yes, the committee may adopt it. Like Chairperson said that the handover was given by the previous chair, Ms. Botha. And then Chairperson, with every report, we just like to know, would you want the report to be considered in the House, or can we just ATC? Does the committee just wish to ATC the report? Consideration to the House is that they want to discuss it further. I'm not sure if the committee would want to do that, or, as there was no real concerns raised. Chair, did you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
You're on mute, Member Bartman?
Chair, I don't think it's necessary for us to consider the report because, to my knowledge, after PERA, we're basically going into annual reports for the next quarter in terms of sitting time slots and being able to deal with the report. And given that there were no concerns specifically that people didn't disagree with what is in the report, I think it's okay with us to simply have it tabled.
I agree with you, ma'am. Are there any other comments on this report and comments on the way forward?
I agree with Member Bartman, Chair.
Thank you, Member Plato. I agree with Member Bartman as well, and therefore the report is hereby tabled.
In order, Chair.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of this. That brings us to the end of this this part of the meeting. I'd like to thank everybody for coming, and we are now going to move to the resolutions and the actions. So everybody is free to leave except the members, of course. Okay. I see that it's only the members present. Members, we move on to resolutions. Are there any resolutions to be tabled?
Yeah, I think the Premier and Jumat set the tone with regard to resolutions, what needs to be forwarded to some of the members, in particular some questions tabled by Member Dugmore. And I think I want to note that as well, but otherwise no other resolutions from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Plato. Member Dugmore. Member Dugmore? You're on mute, sir.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, sorry about that, Chair. Just to say that we've had a practice in the committee where the committee coordinator normally, summarizes the resolution requests or proposals that were made, and that, she reads them out, and then we basically say if we're comfortable with that. So could I propose that we follow that route, agreeing also with Member Plato?
Thank you very much. Ms. Kamish Ahmed, are you able to do that for us, please, ma'am?
Thank you, Chairperson. Through you, there was a request for the money, the amount of a breakdown of the consultants that was used for the second quarter, and then the targets for Wi-Fi and how many were installed. Chairperson, there was a lot of answers to the questions, so the committee must just decide if they want what they want in writing, what they don't want in writing. And then there was to indicate the target for achieving the employment equity in this department, and the list of advocates and legal cost during the quarter, as well as there was an answer about the job creation. So I'm not sure if the members would like a written answer, because the Premier said that extensive breakdown we can get that from the Department of Economic Development and Tourism. So the committee must just let me know if that is what they want. And then there was, yeah, and then
I think there was a fourth one, Chairperson. I agree with Ma'am Kamish. The issue about employment equity, that sort of thing was also raised, and I'm very happy if that one will be included as part of the recommendations.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, that employment equity question was also.
Chair,
yes,
Chair, thanks. I think just in regard to, we did get a very specific answer of 87,000 jobs, but I think we had requested that if in writing they could provide us with a breakdown as to in which sectors those jobs were actually created. I think they were willing to do that in writing. And then on the equity issue, it was not just the current status, but in writing the plans that they have to increase the representativity in the department.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we add that, because that was part of your question, your initial question, and the department did note that they will come back to us in writing. So we will add that. Thank you. Are there any other resolutions or actions that need to be taken?
I'm happy, Chair.
Thank you, Member Plato.
I'm also happy, Chair. Thank you.
In order, Chair, thank you.
In order, thank you.
Thank you very much. This brings us to the end of our meeting. I'd like to say thank you very much to our entire committee and our support staff. Let me just say that this has been a very difficult week, and tomorrow will be not easier for many of us. I didn't want to say it then because I think that a silent prayer is just that, silent prayer. But for one last time, before we take leave of the mortal remains of Member Botha, our previous Chief Whip and our previous chairperson, let's remember, like we said, that we are all here to serve the people of the Western Cape and the country. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your service, and have a wonderful weekend further. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you.
Officials. Bye.
Goodbye.